The morning had started like any other for Anna, except today, her heart was pounding faster than her feet could carry her. Rain splattered against the cracked pavement as she hurried toward the small bakery where she worked, clutching her 6-year-old son, Liam, by the hand. His tiny legs struggled to keep up, but he didn't complain. He never did. She could feel the dampness of his sleeve through her grip, a reminder that she had forgotten his jacket in the rush to leave their modest apartment. Anna knew it wasn't ideal to bring him to work. She knew the rules. But when your babysitter cancels at the last minute and your savings account is already gasping for air, choices stop feeling like choices at all. Inside the warm, yeasty air of the bakery, she set Liam in the corner with a small coloring book and a few crayons she had scavenged from the bottom of her handbag. She plastered on the kind of smile that hides exhaustion and hoped her boss wouldn't notice. For the first hour, everything was fine. Liam was quiet, coloring a picture of a house, one with a big backyard and a dog he always dreamed of having. But then, the bell above the door jingled, and in walked Mrs. Callahan, the owner. Her heels clicked sharply on the tiles as her eyes landed on Liam. Anna's stomach sank. The conversation was short, cold, and final. Company policy didn't allow children in the workplace. Anna tried to explain, her voice cracking, but Mrs. Callahan's expression didn't waver. 10 minutes later, Anna was outside in the drizzle, clutching her last paycheck in one hand and her son's small fingers in the other. She had been fired. If you believe that no one should be punished for protecting their child, that kindness and second chances can change lives, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Anna's shoes? The walk home was long, and the rain had soaked them through. Liam kept looking up at her, his brown eyes full of concern far beyond his years. "It's okay, Mommy," he said softly, and that only made the lump in her throat heavier. The apartment felt colder than usual when they stepped inside, the leaky radiator groaning in the corner. Anna hung their wet coats on the one hook by the door and sat on the couch, staring at the envelope of cash in her lap. It wasn't enough to cover rent. Not enough for groceries and bills. She pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to hide her tears from Liam. The next week was a blur of rejection emails and polite, "We'll keep your resume on file," responses. She applied everywhere, cafes, shops, cleaning jobs, but the small town's opportunities were drying up as fast as her hope. One morning, she saw a notice posted on the community board outside the grocery store, "New cafe opening downtown. Hiring all positions." She almost walked past it, but something in her chest nudged her forward. The cafe was bright, airy, and still smelled faintly of fresh paint. She spoke to a young woman at the counter, who handed her an application form and told her the new manager would be reviewing candidates personally that afternoon. Anna filled it out carefully, her pen trembling as she listed her experience. She didn't mention the bakery. That chapter was closed. When her turn came, she stepped into a small office at the back. The man sitting behind the desk looked up, and for a moment, Anna thought she recognized something in his eyes, warmth, maybe, or the kind of empathy that doesn't need to be spoken. He introduced himself as Daniel, the new manager, and gestured for her to sit. Anna's voice wavered as she explained her skills. She talked about early mornings. About making coffee so smooth customers swore it cured their bad moods, about balancing the cash register to the penny. But then Daniel asked the question she dreaded, "Why did you leave your last job?" Her hands tightened in her lap. She could have lied, but she didn't. She told him about that rainy morning, about Liam sitting quietly in the corner, about being let go because she chose to bring her son instead of leaving him home alone. When she finished, she braced herself for the familiar polite smile, the "we'll call you" the end of another chance. Instead, Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her for a long moment. Then he said something that made her blink in disbelief. "I was that kid." Anna's breath caught. Daniel explained that when he was 7, his single mother used to bring him to her job cleaning offices at night because she couldn't afford childcare. He'd sit in the corner with a book or a toy while she worked, too afraid to make a sound in case they got in trouble. One night, the building manager found them. But instead of firing her, he offered her a better paying position and a flexible schedule. That act of kindness had changed the course of their lives. Daniel's voice softened as he said, "I've never forgotten what it felt like to watch my mother choose me over everything else. I want to give someone else that chance." Anna couldn't hold back the tears. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed, while Liam, who had been waiting quietly outside, poked his head in and smiled shyly at Daniel. Without hesitation, Daniel offered her the job. Not just a job, but one with a schedule that worked around Liam's school hours and the promise that if she ever needed to bring him in, there'd be a corner set aside just for him. The weeks that followed felt like breathing after being underwater too long. The cafe became more than a workplace, it became a safe haven. Daniel kept his promise. On days when Liam had nowhere else to go, he'd sit at a little table in the corner with his homework, sipping hot chocolate. Daniel would sneak him on the house. Customers noticed. Some would drop by just to see the cafe kid, and hear him tell stories about dinosaurs or outer space. One crisp autumn afternoon, Anna stood behind the counter, watching Liam laugh with a group of regulars. The golden light from the window framed his face, and for the first time in months, she felt something blooming inside her, a fragile but steady sense of security. She realized it wasn't just about the paycheck anymore. It was about the dignity she had regained, the kindness that had caught her when she was falling, and the quiet understanding that she was not alone in this world. Life still had its challenges. Bills didn't magically disappear, and there were still days when exhaustion clung to her like a shadow. But now, she faced them with the knowledge that good people existed, that second chances were real, and that sometimes, when you least expect it, the universe sends someone who remembers exactly what you're going through, because they've been there too. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your engagement helps us reach more people with stories of hope, compassion, and resilience. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever been given a second chance that changed everything? Special request. Comment, kindness lasts forever. If you believe small acts of compassion can change someone's life. Alright, let's expand this story into a full, cinematic, slow-burn 6,000-word narrative with richer detail, more sensory imagery, deeper character backstories, and emotional pacing that works perfectly for a YouTube storytelling video. All keep the same emotional beats and calls to action, but I'll stretch the scene so the audience can feel every moment, the rain, the tension, the heartbreak, and the hope. It was the kind of morning that felt heavier than it had any right to be. Not just because of the weather, though the clouds hung so low they seemed to drag the sky down with them. Not because of the fine drizzle that soaked everything without mercy, turning the air into a damp shiver. No, this morning felt heavier because Anna knew she was already starting the day in debt. Not just the kind measured in numbers on a bank statement, but the kind measured in time, energy, and chances. She hurried down the cracked sidewalk, tugging the hand of her 6-year-old son, Liam. His little sneakers splashed through shallow puddles, dark curls plastered to his forehead, but he kept up without complaint. Liam was like that, too old in his heart for his age, as if life had given him a crash course in resilience before he'd even finished learning the alphabet. They were late. The babysitter had texted an hour earlier, apologizing and saying she couldn't make it. That had left Anna with a choice: leave Liam alone in their tiny apartment, or bring him to the bakery where she worked. She didn't need to weigh the options. No job, no matter how precarious, would ever be worth risking her son's safety. The bakery smelled of warmth and yeast when they stepped inside, the scent wrapping around them like a promise of comfort. Anna led Liam to a small table in the corner and dug into her worn handbag. She pulled out a coloring book with bent corners and a half-broken pack of crayons, pressing them into his little hands with a smile that masked the knot in her stomach. She tied on her apron and slipped behind the counter, forcing herself into the rhythm of the morning. Baking trays sliding into ovens, the hiss of steam from the coffee machine, the soft chatter of regular customers. She glanced over at Liam every few minutes, and each time he was there, head bent over the page, lips pursed in concentration. For a fleeting moment, she thought they might just make it through the shift unnoticed. Then the bell above the door jingled. Anna didn't need to look up to know it was Mrs. Callahan. The owner's heels tapped against the tiled floor, each step sharp and deliberate. Her perfume, expensive and sharp, cut through the warm scent of bread. Her gaze landed on Liam. Anna's heart sank. The conversation was short, almost surgical in its precision. "We have rules, Mrs. Callahan said, her tone as crisp as the white blouse she wore. "Children are not allowed on the premises." Anna tried to explain. Babysitter cancelled, no other option, but the explanation slid off Mrs. Callahan's expressionless face. 10 minutes later, Anna was outside, holding her last paycheck in one hand and her son's small fingers in the other. The drizzle had turned to a steadier rain, soaking their clothes until the fabric clung to their skin. Liam looked up at her, wide-eyed, as if trying to understand how the morning had unraveled so quickly. "If you believe no parent should be punished for protecting their child, that kindness and second chances can change lives, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Anna's shoes?" The walk home was long and cold. Their apartment, a dim second-floor unit in a building that always smelled faintly of damp wood, felt like a refuge and a prison at the same time. The radiator gurgled in the corner, offering more noise than heat. Anna hung their wet coats on the only hook by the door and dropped her handbag on the table. She sat on the couch and stared at the envelope in her lap. It was barely enough to cover a week's rent. Groceries, bills, bus fare, all impossible math problems that she couldn't solve tonight. Liam crawled up beside her, his little body radiating warmth. "It's okay, Mommy," he said softly. She smiled at him through the sting in her eyes. Days blurred together after that. Anna sent out resumes like lifeboats into a storm, hoping one would find a shore. Some jobs never replied. Others sent polite rejections. The ones that did call her in for interviews always seemed to have some reason: too much experience, too little experience, scheduling conflicts. Her savings account shrank to almost nothing. One Thursday morning, while walking to the grocery store, Anna noticed a fresh flyer pinned to the community board outside: new cafe opening downtown. Hiring all positions. She almost kept walking. After all, she'd been through this so many times, but something in her gut told her to stop. The cafe was still being set up when she arrived. The air smelled faintly of paint, and sunlight spilled through tall windows, making the wooden floors glow. A young woman with a clipboard greeted her and handed her an application. Anna filled it out carefully, listing her experience and trying to keep her handwriting steady. She didn't mention the bakery. She was told the new manager would be reviewing candidates personally that afternoon. When her turn came, she stepped into a small back office. The man sitting behind the desk looked up from a stack of papers. He had warm brown eyes and a calmness about him that made Anna feel less like a candidate being judged and more like a person being listened to. His name was Daniel. Anna explained her skills: early mornings, fast service, managing registers with precision. But when he asked why she left her last job, she felt her throat tighten. She told him about that rainy morning, about Liam coloring quietly in the corner, about Mrs. Callahan's cold voice. She braced herself for the end of the interview. Instead, Daniel leaned back and said softly, "I was that kid." Anna blinked. Daniel told her about his mother, a single parent who used to bring him along to her office cleaning jobs. One night, the building manager caught them, but instead of firing her, he offered her a better position and a flexible schedule. That kindness had altered the course of their lives. "I've never forgotten what it felt like to be that child," he said. "And I want to give someone else the same chance." Anna didn't even realize she was crying until Liam, who had been waiting outside, peered in and smiled shyly at Daniel. Daniel offered her the job on the spot, with hours that fit Liam's school schedule and the assurance that he'd always have a place to sit if she needed to bring him in. The cafe became more than a job. It was a place where kindness lived in the details. Daniel kept a small jar of crayons and paper at the ready for Liam. Customers got used to seeing the boy doing homework in the corner, sipping hot chocolate. Some would bring him little gifts: a book, a cookie, a toy car. One autumn afternoon, sunlight poured through the windows, painting everything gold. Anna stood behind the counter, watching Liam laugh with a regular customer. For the first time in months, she felt truly safe. Life wasn't perfect, bills still came, and exhaustion still knocked at her door, but now she faced it all knowing she wasn't alone. Sometimes, the world really did give second chances. Sometimes, those second chances came from people who had once been exactly where you are. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Stories Collection. Your engagement helps us keep telling stories of hope, compassion, and resilience. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever been given a second chance that changed your life? Special request. Comment: kindness lasts forever. If you believe small acts of compassion can change someone's life. I can triple this length easily by adding more backstory about Anna's earlier life and struggles. A detailed scene of Daniel's childhood flashback. Extra cafe moments showing how the community embraced them. A small subplot where Liam does something kind that mirrors Daniel's past.